Good Tuesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. The Browns lost to the Steelers in Pittsburgh. More importantly, they lost Nick Chubb for the season, a knee injury. It was confirmed today he will be out for the remainder of the season. Amari Cooper, Browns wide receiver, talked about the loss of Nick Chubb for the season.
Obviously, it's a huge loss. Nick is like the engine of the team, you know what I mean? Best player on the team, you know what I mean? So it's tragic, very unfortunate. I'm very sad for Nick, sad for his team, losing Nick. It's just, not only is it not ideal, but this is a tragedy,
Let's welcome in Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, brownzone.com. And Scott, that was the message from pretty much any of the Browns players that you talked to.
Yeah, I thought Amari was really strong there, calling it a tragedy. You just don't hear that about every player that gets hurt. Even the serious injuries, even guys lost for the season, even how gruesome that looked. If it wasn't a player of Nick Chubb's caliber and stature, I don't think you hear those same kind of comments. And it wasn't just Amari. David Njoku, Myles Garrett, Joe Bitonio all said a lot of similar things. And it's because Nick Chubb, not only is he arguably the team's best player, he's the hardest worker on the team, right? He's kind of the guy that the Browns build their culture around. He's the example for everyone. So it's going to have a lasting impact on this team, on the field and in the locker room.
All right, so Kevin Stefanski said this afternoon that the Browns will, in fact, look at a running back. They'll look to add one, but Jerome Ford will be the lead back.
We are working on that, Mary Kay and Andrew and the personnel department's working through options. You don't, as you know, you don't replace Nick Chubb. That's you just don't do that. Great players in the league. You look around, they go out. It's always not one person that replaces a player of his caliber. So everybody's got to do a little bit more. Got to do a little bit more everywhere. But we'll look at options there in terms of who we bring in.
All right, Scott, let's take a look. Here is the list of the universal guys that the Browns are likely looking at. So Leonard Fournette, a free agent. Kareem Hunt has been here, a free agent. Potentially trade for Cam Akers with the Rams. He's kind of fallen out of favor. Rashad Penny with the Eagles kind of has fallen in the depth chart. Carter from the Jets has fallen behind. They're back, Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. And then you also add Cordell Patterson from the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at that, who makes the most sense? Kevin Stefanski wouldn't even say if they were looking at a veteran or what kind of running back they're looking to bring in.
Yeah, what Cam Akers to me is a guy that jumps out on that list. Former second-round pick, still young. I think he's 24. I'm not exactly sure why he's fallen out of favor with the Rams. I know he had the Achilles injury a couple years ago, and maybe he lost a spot on the depth chart. It's interesting. I'm trying to find out more about that, but he's a guy that I think has some upside to him. A guy like Fournette is old. Kareem Hunt is interesting just because his history, and he's been here, and we know the Cleveland ties. I think there's questions about how much he has left, but if he does, he could add a spark. We know that Kareem's an energetic guy. I think he's liked in that locker room. So those are the two guys that jump out to me. And I don't know if, how serious they're considering Kareem, but I think he is an option there. Here Fournette, he's a bigger guy. I don't know if they need a bruiser. I think they just need kind of a more well-rounded guy, especially one that if Ford's the feature back, like Stefanski said he's going to be, they needed a guy on third down who can do that job, right? Pick up the blitz, catch a ball in the backfield, maybe even return kickoffs.
So the other thing that comes to mind is he wouldn't even commit to a veteran. You've got two guys that are in their second year. If you go Akers, that's three guys that are, that right. Young in there. So a veteran would make sense to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I asked that question, right? It just makes sense to bring in a guy that has some experience, especially if then, something happened to Jerome Ford, right? Pierce Strong doesn't have much experience either. So I just like that idea. And, maybe the coaches don't think it's as important as I do. Maybe Stefanski just says that because he knows, the options are limited and maybe you just have to take the guy you think's the most talented, as opposed to having that experience as a prerequisite. But if you can find the best of both worlds, that makes sense to me. And I know Akers is young, but he does have a bunch of carries in this league. So I think maybe he is kind of that perfect fit.
And the Browns, Jordan Schultz, national NFL reporter, did say that they have kind of kicked the tires on him as well. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Truth and Reason. First truth, God bless Nick Chubb and his family. Our thoughts and prayers are with him as Browns fans. Second all, our season's over with. To have a quarterback like Deshaun Watson play the way he played tonight, the way he played against Cincinnati, the way he played last year, he has no business in the league. He's washed up. Get rid of Deshaun Watson. Put DTR in. Deshaun Watson has no business being a Cleveland Brown. Go Browns. Love you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, get off his lawn. I don't think you can. Deshaun Watson has to play better. I don't think you can say he's washed up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I get the frustration. He did not look good yesterday, and you don't have weather, or he doesn't have weather, is an excuse for how he played. Now, yeah, it's a good Steelers defense. He was under a lot of pressure for a good chunk of the night, but I don't think that excuses a lot of things that Deshaun Watson did wrong last night. And he makes a couple better plays. He doesn't turn the ball over 3 times, and not that all those were his fault, but it's a different outcome, or it could be a different outcome. So he has not been what they needed him to be. I think some people just gave him a pass last year, and I get it, coming off that 700-day layoff. But he needs to be better, and that's even magnified further given the Nick Chubb injury, right? You can't just turn around and hand it to Chubb 22 times a game because he's not there. So the quarterback, the coaches, everybody needs to step up and take some of that load. And it starts with your $230 million quarterback. And, I kind of get the cause for DTR. I don't really, but I understand where the caller's coming from. But, they're so committed to Deshaun Watson financially, from a resource standpoint, what they gave up in that trade, that they are not going to pull the plug on this until they've exhausted, in my opinion, every option to see if they can get him back to the player he was with the Texans, the guy that they thought they were trading for.
Yeah, that is absolutely fair, and it is fair for people to question, how he's played. He hasn't played well. I'm one of the guys that probably gave him a pass last year. He's got to play better, and I get it, and fans are right.
Yeah, and it's pretty. There's a lot of things that aren't going right for him. I don't think he's seeing the defense as crisply as as clearly as he needs to. He's hanging on to the ball for a long time, which hurts the protection and leads to sacks. And he's not getting not taking the easy completion and getting the ball out of his hands. He's been inaccurate with some throws. Threw some balls out of bounds yesterday, maybe some on purpose, but not all of them. He's behind guys. Even the first interception, Harrison Bryant should probably catch that, but it's a 4-yard pass, and he has to extend for it. It doesn't hit him. It's not an easy pass to catch where it probably should be. And then, the losing the composure with the 2 face masks and the penalty on the sideline. Those are all bad signs when you need your quarterback to play well on a big stage. And he wasn't up to that challenge yesterday. So
Deshaun Watson was asked post-game, can the Browns still live up to all of their lofty goals without Nick Chubb?
Most definitely. It's week 2, and like we said before, it's just, it's a huge loss for our team to have Nick Chubb. And but I think Jerome and those guys are going to step up, and it's a long season. We got 15 more to go, so anything can happen. It's the NFL. Every week is a challenge, no matter who you're playing against, where you're playing at. So the dreams and everything that we want is still in front of us, and we just got to get ready for Tennessee this week and get back on the track.
So, Scott, the good news is it's week 2, and your defense looks to be elite.
Oh yeah, and that gives you a chance, right? I mean, we talk about, and we all get caught up in it, right? We look long term. Okay, what are they going to do over 17 games? And really, every week is so important. Things change so much from one week to the next. You have a big injury like the Browns experienced, so you kind of you have to kind of narrow the focus, as Kevin Stefanski likes to say. My point is, you need your quarterback to play better, right? Long term, but this defense, I think, is good enough to help you get by, right? To help you, if you're the Browns, figure out a way to win without Nick Chubb, figure out a way to win without Deshaun Watson being explosive. The defense should be able to keep you in games, just the way it played against Cincinnati, the way it played again last night against Pittsburgh. So I think there is reason for optimism there. And I think legitimately you can point to that and say, okay, that should keep this team in a bunch of games where maybe they can figure it out on the other side of the ball, win a couple of close game, low-scoring games, and then hope the rest of the team, offense and special teams, kind of rises up to where the defense is right now.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Hi, guys. Danielle, I'm just speechless. I don't even know what to say. Chubb, that was a dirty, dirty hit by Fitzpatrick. So now we lost Chubb, we lost Ward, we lost Newsome. Stefanski's not that great at play calling. Watkins is not doing good. He is not bouncing back at all. I always thought it was a mistake to pay all this money for Watson. He had all those penalties. Watson pick and fight and ruining drives. I mean, I'm just beside myself. I mean, this is just ridiculous, and I'm just speechless. That's all I got. Love your show. Woof, woof. Go Brownies. I still love you. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, relative to Fitzpatrick, I don't think it was a dirty play. Reckless, maybe. I mean, if you go high and you hit him in the head, it's helmet to helmet and you're a penalty. So you go low. If Nick Chubb's able to, if he's a split second later, Chubb's leg isn't planted, I just don't think it was, I don't think it was a dirty play.
I agree with you completely, Dave, and that's what I was going to say. Nowadays guys are kind of taught to go lower because you want to avoid that, hit to the head. So many defensive backs now, they kind of just throw their body into a guy's legs as opposed to wrapping up. I think it takes some of the toll off their bodies. And that's what it felt like Fitzpatrick was doing to me. I know if you just, isolate on that play and you watch his body going to Chubb's knee, it looks awful. But I agree with you. The problem was, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing that Nick Chubb has been hit that way plenty of times before. But when that foot happens to be planted, right when that contact hits, that's what happens, and it's not all that different from what happened to Jack Conklin the week earlier when Hendrickson fell into his knee and he wasn't suspecting it.
Yeah. Kevin Stefanski talked about the sloppy play against the Steelers yesterday.
And you see our team doing things that you cannot do and win in the NFL. It's hard to win in the NFL. You can't do some of the things we did and expect to win. The turnovers, the giveaways, 4 of them, 2 of them leading the touchdowns. Some of the penalties, the field position game, we did not play well enough. So that's the truth of it. Didn't play well enough as a team. So we'll own that one. Win as a team, lose as a team. And then we got to turn our attention very quickly to Tennessee, another AFC opponent at our place. So we have already started work on them, and we'll get going on them with the players tomorrow.
They just didn't play well. I mean, however you want, whomever you want to blame that on, when your defense plays like that, you should win.
Yeah, and I think we get caught up, and rightfully so, in the big issues, right? The Chubb injury and how Watson played. But if they just eliminate some of those mistakes, one of those mistakes, like Stefanski says, is probably a different outcome. And it's, they gave up 2 defensive touchdowns. And I don't know if we talked about this, but I know my thinking, at least going into the game, was that was the easiest path to figure out for a Steelers win, was if they got like a defensive touchdown. I didn't think they'd get 2. Well, I thought it was possible, but even 1 could have changed the game. But yet you think okay, if there's 2 strip sacks and they turn into touchdowns, because it felt like the Browns would be able to stop Pittsburgh's offense. Felt like the Browns matched up with them pretty much everywhere except at those tackle spots with T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith coming off the edge. And, one of the first touchdown is not to blame on the tackles, but it is Highsmith catching that ricochet and, returning that first play for a pick 6. And then when the game on the line, it was the tackle, Jedrick Wills Jr. let him down. And it turns into, that strip sack fumble touchdown. So, if you eliminate either of those, the Browns probably win the game. Maybe if you eliminate one of the Deshaun Watson face masks, then the Browns have a chance to continue one of their drives. If David Njoku doesn't fumble near midfield, they punt, and then theoretically you back the Steelers up at the 10. They're probably not going 90 yards instead of giving the ball at midfield, and I think that turns into points, right? Donovan Peoples-Jones, for some reason, couldn't judge a punt all day, and it killed him and cost him field position. So there's a million things, 8 penalties, and if you just eliminate some of those, I don't think Stefanski's wrong to say that. And, we'd be looking at this game a lot differently, and Watson still wouldn't have played much better. Nick Chubb still would have gotten hurt. But if you just eliminate one of those big mistakes or 2 of the small ones, all of a sudden you're 2-0, and you're talking about how you went in and got a gutsy win instead of letting one get away for another loss in Pittsburgh.
So former NFL quarterback Troy Aikman, who called the game, talked about what he has seen from Deshaun Watson.
He did not look comfortable tonight. Last week, as we talked about, the conditions were such that the passing game just wasn't going to be very effective for him or Burrow. But even last year, this was not the Deshaun Watson that we had seen during those years with the Texans. And as I mentioned during the ballgame, it is a different offense. But he's had time now, and this offensive staff has had time to figure out, okay, well, what exactly is it that Deshaun Watson does best? It's all been built around Nick Chubb. We understand that. And Kevin Stefanski understands that. And that's not a bad way to go. And Deshaun Watson was having to get adjusted a little bit to kind of the different play, the play action off of the running game and those types of things. But now, without Nick Chubb, I just think that this offense going forward, I would have to believe, is going to look different than what we've seen under Kevin Stefanski for the last few years.
And Scott, they need to get the ball out of his hand quick. Give him some short passes where he can get positive. Elijah Moore, David Njoku, they need to get the ball in their hands quickly.
They do, but I don't think that's a play calling thing, Dave. To me, it feels like those opportunities are there, and Watson's not taking them, and he's kind of choosing to hold on to the ball longer, and either not seeing it or in his head wanting to make a bigger play and go downfield. And I think I asked him about that after the game, and he said, "Yeah, I got to get out of my hands quicker," and that helps protection too, right? You don't put as much stress on your offensive line if you're not holding the ball forever. So I think that's key. I think it's interesting what Aikman was saying because, I know that Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt wanted the offense to look a lot different this year. That was the plan. And we've seen signs of it. They've spread it out. They've sprinkled in a bunch of different looks, right? Elijah Moore here, Elijah Moore there, Elijah Moore in the backfield, some option looks, some RPO looks. You see all this different stuff. But Watson just hasn't been good enough. And I know it's only 2 games, but where you just say, okay, you go run the offense. And especially when you have Nick Chubb, why wouldn't you not use Nick Chubb, right? There has to be a balance there, especially when Watson's struggling. Now without Chubb, maybe they just give total control to Watson, but it's hard for them to have confidence to do that when Watson hasn't played well.
Yeah, without question. And along those lines, Watson was asked where he's at from a comfortability in this offense, as well as how he played against the Steelers.
Still coming along. I feel like tonight, it was shitty as far as that. Some plays that we capitalized and we did good, but as far as my part, it's not good enough. I put that on me. The first play, yeah, we can, get into the tactics of, receiver running out and putting the ball out and, this, that, the third, but, I got to give him a better ball. The forced fumble for a touchdown for them, we can say this guy can do this, but I got to protect the ball. We're not going to put it on anyone else. You put it on me. I can take the full blame. I can take the criticism, and I'm going to do that. And I told everyone in our offense, the whole team, I'm going to do better for this team, for this organization, so we can win games like that. And I'm fine with taking the criticism, and I will be better.
Yeah, and take a look at this, Scott. So this is off-target rate for quarterbacks over the first couple of weeks. It doesn't include spikes and throwaways. Dak Prescott, best in the league, only 8.1%. You see Watson is behind Young, Pickett, and Love, 27.6% of his throws off target. The question is, how do you fix that? Why is that happening? It's a guy that historically has been a pretty accurate thrower, and he just isn't right now.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, for a while, he was like the most accurate quarterback in the history of the league, given whatever, number of throws. So yeah, it's a really steep fall off. All those guys on the list that he's behind, but are right in front of him, are all like first-year starters. And he's been around for a while. So they got to get that figured out. I think part of it is footwork. I don't think his footwork's as clean as it needs to be. And part of that is not taking those easy completions, like we talked about. But, Dave, I thought it was interesting. And you played the whole clip of that quote, which I'm glad you did. I think in one sense you look at it and go, okay, he's taking all this blame, right? Put it on me. But, within that he says, well, we could talk about how the receiver didn't, run the perfect route. Or we could talk about how this other thing got screwed up. It felt a little like, yeah, I'll take the blame, but I just want everybody to know that it wasn't just me. And I don't love that in my quarterback. I think you need to just take all the blame without kind of alluding to who else is to blame.
Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as BrownsZone.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll continue talking Browns, Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegraph, as well as BrownsZone.com, and I continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Great show. Howard from Marin County. Couple thoughts here. Number one, the Browns is the Browns. They're the great pretenders. The offense is terrible. Watson is not the Watson from 3 years ago, and the joke was always the joke. Oh, he'll always screw up. Where the heck is DPJ? Elijah Moore is definitely too small. He was pushed around, pushed out of bounds. The offensive line isn't all that great. They're getting old. I think we'll be lucky if the Browns get to be a 500 team. Very disappointed. It wouldn't surprise me if they lose a lot of next games and that Kevin Stefanski is gone in the middle of season. I don't dig the deep balls to Marquise Goodwin. That's a waste of time. Not a good showing. The Browns is the Browns. Extremely disappointed. They do this to me every year. Thanks a lot, Dave, for allowing me to rant. Have a nice day. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, that's where the fan base is at right about now, huh?
It is, and I completely get it, and I get all those same texts, right? I get a text from this friend of mine I haven't talked to in forever. I got one of those today, and so yeah, I completely understand it. I do think probably needs a little more perspective. You know, it was only 8 days ago, 9 days ago, the Browns looked really good against the Bengals. We talked about how good the defense is. I don't think that's a fluke. Obviously, you need to figure out quarterback, and you need to figure out offense needs to be much better. But, you know, it's tough to win in Pittsburgh. It's tough if you turn the ball over 4 times. Like, if they play cleaner, I think they have chances to win a lot of games this year. I don't think the schedule's crazy hard. You know, some winnable games on the schedule. So, you know, I understand it, but I think it's a little bit of an overreaction given just Monday night.
So you mentioned 4 turnovers, -2. They were -2 last week. So they're -4, and they had a chance to win this game on their final drive. Having said that, what do you do with the offense if you're Kevin Stefanski? What do you try to do?
Yeah, you know what? I think I would try to simplify it. You know, I mentioned how we see a lot of, you know, and I'm fine with Elijah Moore moving around the formation. I don't have an issue with that. But, you know, there's these option looks, there's quarterback runs, there's RPOs. Maybe just make things simpler, you know? It just feels like Kevin Stefanski threw a bunch in and said, okay, Deshaun Watson likes all this stuff. Let's make it all work. Let's confuse the defenses. And it just hasn't had a lot of success. I know it's early, and maybe they'll find, you know, maybe all of it together will gel. But I think sometimes when you're struggling, you're better off just simplifying things. Go to, you know, whatever, a 12-play, your bread and butter, and run those and run those and run those, and see if you can get some consistency that way. I think I would try that, and included in that would be getting Watson some easier throws to get him more confidence, to get rid of some of that awful, you know, on target rate that you showed earlier. Like, I think that's part of it. He needs to feel better about himself and better throwing the ball for him to take those next steps that he needs to take.
All right, so Myles Garrett talked about the defensive battle last night with the Steelers.
They're a tough defense, and made some big plays when they needed to, and we made big plays when we needed to. You know, just got to follow through. There's still small margins that separate you from 1-1 and 2-0, and you know, wasn't just, you know, one side of the ball. You know, there were a couple plays that slipped away from us on defense, special teams, so everywhere where we can be just a little bit better.
How do you run defensively to do what you guys did?
I mean, didn't get the W, so not well enough. We, you know, held them where we needed to rushing-wise, and made a couple of plays. You know, made that big play to Pickens. That really got them fired up, but you know, we were able to dial back in and make some plays. But as far as, you know, getting the stops we needed to, and we got that done. But we need to get, you know, those takeaways. You know, if we get our hands on the ball, you know, we got to be able to, you know, come up with it or score with it.
So you look at it, Scott. They gave up a 71-yard touchdown pass and 2 defensive touchdowns. Nobody has consistently driven the ball on the defense. And there's only 2 teams, the Dolphins and the Ravens. Those are the only 2 teams in the AFC who are ahead of the Browns at 2-0.
Right. Yeah, you know, 1 touchdown in 2 games, obviously that's phenomenal. You start to think that it's going to be really hard for offenses to go 75 yards against this defense. You know, grind it out, right? And that's why the 71-yard touchdown was huge. Get that one big play, and then Kenny Pickett doesn't have to complete 5 in a row, right? Harris doesn't have to run 6 times. So they need to eliminate those big plays. I think maybe a Schwartz aggressive attacking defense is susceptible to that, and you kind of have to live with it. But they've shown so much good through these 2 games. But, you know, could they have won the game if Rodney McLeod gets an interception on that sideline, I think, to start the second half? It bounces off his hands. That could be a huge turning point, right? Like, just because you make a couple of turnovers and make a couple of plays doesn't mean you can't stop, right? The Steelers weren't done when they had one defensive touchdown. The second one won the game. So I do think there were more plays for the defense to make that could have made up for all the deficiencies, across the rest of the team.
Scott Petrak, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out, Browns beat reporter, Elyria Chronicle-Telegraph, as well as brownzone.com. Always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnaman, Dog Pound Daily. On the other side of the break, stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This game is not on Watson. In my opinion, it's the offensive line. If you look at everything that happened as far as turnovers, everything else, I would say out of all the turnovers, one turnover was his fault. Everything else, from the pick to the sack, strip fumble, touchdown, he had nobody to help him. He was really running for his life. It wasn't Watson. The offensive line just had a really, really bad day. We tried to take our deep shots, and we couldn't. But we're going to have to get better. Defensively, offensively, special teams. You're not going to find yourself in week 2. You're not going to be 100% in week 2. And if you are, then you need to reevaluate your team before you take yourself seriously. And we got a long way to go, before we can say, okay, yeah, this season is lost.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily. Casey, it is on the offensive line. It is on Deshaun Watson. It's not on the defense, even remotely. Your offense gave up 2 defensive scores and turned the ball over 4 times. It's on the offense. They have to play better.
Yeah, I mean, it starts at the offensive line. It always starts in the trenches. And the Browns had their lunches handed to them last night up front. But a massive portion of blame goes on Deshaun Watson's shoulders. I mean, that's the reason you go and pay $230 million for a guy who can operate in those kind of situations and be better at that and rise above. And it's not even just that he wasn't able to do that. It was simple stuff, man. It's his eyes and his feet not being on point together. He's inaccurate. He's off time. And when he does hit the open guy, it's often at the end of their route, not allowing for yards after catch. It's, in Houston, he was kind of valued because, he didn't have a good offensive line, and look what he was able to do. He was not able to operate in the chaos at all last night. It all went out the window. And he was playing with low football IQ and critical downs. I mean, these are all things that fall back on him. And yes, the offensive line has to play better, no doubt. But to absolve Deshaun Watson of any blame, to me, is just ridiculous.
Well, and I defended Kevin Stefanski's play calling in week 1. Where are the quick dump passes to Elijah Moore? Where are the easy yards we're supposed to be? There was none of that.
Yeah, and the predictability is what comes to mind. When you get T.J. Watt after the game in a post-game interview saying that on that strip sack fumble for a touchdown, they knew exactly what play the Browns were going to run. That's a problem. That's, I don't know if you need to hire an extra coach to do self-scouting during every week to kind of get you out of your tendencies. But when you're that predictable against a team with that kind of talent, those are what's going to happen to you. You're going to find yourself in terrible positions. So the predictability of the play calling is an issue. A lot of the plays, there are guys running open that Watson's not seeing. But I agree with you. It's got to be the quick, easy stuff, and that's what's going to get Watson back on track.
All right. Former NFL offensive lineman Brian Baldinger has been breaking down in video analyzing DeJuan Jones pretty much since the preseason. Here is what he saw and what he said about the rookie's performance against the Steelers.
DeJuan Jones played all 87 snaps for the Browns last night. He wasn't bad. He had a lot of one-on-ones with T.J. Watt. This is what you're supposed to do. Run him right around the horn right there. Like, you can find all kinds of plays right here. Like, this is just a tidal wave coming at Cole Holcomb. Like, when he pushes you, like, you just keep going. He just covers you up. You know, when you watch him right here, like, he's not in bad shape against TJ. All right, but on the other side, Highsmith spins inside on the left tackle, like, and Deshaun Watson can't step up. Look, a lot of people are going to get beat by TJ Watt like that. All right? And yes, he had a holding call. Yes, he had an offsides. But watch how he covers TJ up here. And then here comes Landon Roberts. And it looks like, to me, one hand is in Pittsburgh and one hand is in Cleveland. He's got them both blocked, and Deshaun Watson, with a 2-point try, skips into the end zone. Now, you watch this right here against Marcus Golden. It's what you call a grab and snatch. It's not Monday Night Football. It's Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw, that's where he belonged. Bam. Over. All kinds of time to throw the ball. So you watch this, like, look, yes, at the end of the game, in the second half, he got him some help. All right? But who doesn't want some help on TJ?
And Casey, again, PFF, not the Bible, but an unbiased, ranked him as the highest rated pass blocker for the Browns yesterday. So, fourth-round pick did his part. The other parts of the offensive line, you need better.
Yeah, I mean, if you walk away from that game, and he's probably the most encouraging thing you can say about the offensive line. You know, as a rookie getting his first start against TJ Watt, that doesn't say good things about the rest of your offensive line. He performed admirably, man. Like, just given where he was drafted in his development, where he's at already this quickly, I think the Browns have them something at right tackle. You know, he's got all the measurables. You know, he's got plus some. I mean, let's be honest. He makes other offensive linemen look small, but he's got quick feet. He strikes well with his hands. Sometimes he gets a little high, but he's 6'8". That's going to be hard not to do. But over time, with someone like Bill Callahan, he'll probably get that under control. And he needs to work on his run blocking. But you can't ask a tougher assignment of a player getting his first start than going up against TJ Watt. That's up there. That's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And for the most part, he did his job. Of course, they had to help him a little bit. I mean, they help veterans with TJ Watt. It is what it is. But DeJuan Jones is very encouraging. And I appreciate the fact that old Baldy has an affinity for him, because each week we get to see a little clip like that, and makes you feel good about the rookie's progression. All
right, so the Browns did say they will be looking to bring in a running back after the Nick Chubb injury. Who do you think that some of the names that are out there, Fournette, Hunt, Akers, Cam Akers, that the Rams are likely going to trade, J.D. McKissick, Cordell Patterson, Michael Carter, who makes sense to you? What profile makes sense?
Well, the obvious answer is Hunt, just because the familiarity he already has with the organization and somewhat with the playbook. They've tweaked things, but he has a basic understanding. But more importantly, Stump Mitchell. That's the guy that he needs to report to, and he has a great understanding of who Hunt is as a player. But if you understand how AB operates, I think it points to a trade. I think you're looking at a Cam Akers or a Cordell Patterson or even a McKissick. I think that's just would make the most sense organizationally, because that's how AB gets his players. There's no easy answer here. I do think that they are content right now with giving Ford the one looks. You know, he's going to be RB1. We'll see how Strong comes along, but they 1,000,000% need to add another running back to that room, and they need a veteran. They need somebody with some experience, because right now you got 2 second-year players, and that's all you got back there now. So I look for a trade. I wouldn't be mad if they went and got Hunt at this stage, just given where they're at after the Chubb injury, though.
So Kevin Stefanski would not commit to a veteran. He did say that Ford will get the number 1 looks earlier this afternoon. So that'll be interesting to see how that sorts itself out. Deshaun Watson was asked last night, does he need to elevate his play with Nick Chubb being out?
I just gotta keep doing what I'm doing. Just keep trying to get better, 1% better each and every week. You know, every week is different and things like that. So urgency to up my game. You know, I can't force the issue. I can't force any, you know, deep balls or, you know, throws, you know, things like that. I just got to keep trying to do what the coaching staff is asking me to do. Going through my reads and checking it down when I need to, and try to make plays with my feet. That's all I can really do. Don't try to go outside and do what Nick Chubb was doing. You know, I can't do that. So why would I try to do that?
How much of an issue was their pressure in your protection? It felt like you were under a lot of pressure all night long.
No, I just got to get the ball out quicker. I think that's the biggest thing, even in a drop back. Just if they're coming, then maybe I should check it down a little bit faster and sooner, and maybe that can help to slow down the pressure and things like that, But, I just got to get rid of the ball and try not to take those unnecessary sacks.
Casey, they got to get a quick passing game going with him. That was one of the things he did well. And again, Ford had the long run. Other than that, it was something along the lines of 17 carries, 35 yards. So you don't have Nick Chubb in the backfield anymore.
Yeah, you don't have Nick Chubb, and you're not going to replace Nick Chubb. This offense is going to have to pivot. And if they're going to do it through their passing game, it needs to be the short, quick stuff that is an extension of your running game that kind of gives you, keeps you up with a stick. So you're not facing 3rd and 8s, You want to stay in that medium zone. And he touched on it, man. He's got to get that ball out. He can say quicker, but I just needed to see him get the ball out, period. There were several times last night where he's just holding on to it, clutching, and even after he's evaded pressure, he's still kind of holding on to it. That you have to have a mental clock. It's going off at all times, and you got to get that ball out. It can't be in your hand, hot potato, especially against a team like Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and that hurt him time and time again. And that just also exposes your offensive line to more holding calls if you're just sitting back there holding the ball. So he touched on it. Get rid of it. The quick passing game would be a great asset to him right now because he's looking for answers downfield, and his eyes just aren't allowing him to see it properly.
Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. I've been supportive of Watson. I've been giving him every excuse in the book when it comes to his poor play. Unfortunately, I can no longer defend him. When Chubb went down, our entire fan base was expecting our supposed franchise quarterback to take over the game. Our defense only gave up 12 points. But then you turn around and the offense surrenders 14. That was the difference in the game. This is so disappointing on so many levels. I'm so tired of losing to the Steelers in Pittsburgh. This is why other fan bases and national media still say we're the same old Browns. But I'm just fed up with this team for the continued failure at finally turning the corner and becoming a real top-tier team. And now, to make matters worse, we've lost the great Nick Chubb. This is just so heartbreaking. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Casey, so they've got 6 turnovers in the 2 games. They are -4 in turnovers and have a chance, when they got the ball back, they had a chance to be 2-0. What is going on with the offense with the turnovers?
Well, it speaks to the defense that they can be this kind of discrepancy in the turnover margin. They're still in the game, which is normally you'd be blown out in those situations. But yeah, it's all discombobulation. There's no cohesion. It's people not being on the same page. Ball placement has a lot to do with some of the turnovers and bad breaks. You're going to get bad breaks, though. You're going to have tip balls. What Harrison Bryant did on the very first play of the game, it's weird because it's hard as a Browns fan not to immediately go back to the first play from the 2020 playoff game when they snapped it over Ben's head and just that feeling they must have had. Well, we got to experience that last night. But they got to get on the same page, and it's got to be quick, easy stuff, man. I hate to keep harping on it, but we're not to the point now with the offensive development where we can make things more complicated than they need to be. Especially when you go out and get someone like Elijah Moore to get cheap, easy yards. And you didn't even see an attempt at it last night, and get David Njoku involved. Just get your players who operate closer to the line of scrimmage involved in the game, and kind of take some of the pressure off Watson. Don't give him these things, quick stuff that he has to process, instead of going through reads while he's under duress, because he's not there mentally right now. And there's a couple different ways they can get around this, and some of it's going to be uncomfortable to hear, but there is a chance that Stefanski has to take the sticks back from Watson and kind of do what he did with Mayfield and Brissett until Watson can get going, get his footing again. And I know that's not what you want to hear. You don't pay $230 million to have to get a quarterback that you basically have to put training wheels on, but it is where they're at right now.
So Kevin Stefanski talked about Watson saying that he needed to play better post-game last night.
It's never about one person. I completely understand that the quarterback gets way too much of the credit, way too much of the blame. That's just life of being a quarterback in the NFL. It's the head coach. You get all the credit. You don't deserve it. You get all the blame. It doesn't matter. You own it. So I know what he's made of. I know how he works, and I expect him to come in here and ready to work tomorrow. That's really where the focus is.
And again, to do the same, to have the same offensive structure that you had with Nick Chubb, I mean, Jerome Ford was fine. He's not Nick Chubb. He won't ever be Nick Chubb.
Yeah, if you're looking to replace Nick Chubb, you're going to have a lifelong journey on your hands. There was only one of him. And we've seen how the offense was operating with Chubb, and it wasn't smooth sailing through the passing game, even with Chubb out there. Without him, it's going to be even rougher. Defensive coordinators are going to tee off. They're not going to hesitate. They don't have to hesitate to stack the box and just stop the running game, because you have not proven that you can navigate the passing game. And until that happens, it's going to be phone booth offense. So they need to pivot in a direction that aids them, and not one that's going to make things harder, especially on Watson, because of the way he's processing right now. So it's going to be a journey. Luckily, you have this defense that you can rely on. My issue is with a loss like last night, how many more efforts of that are you going to get from the defense before this just becomes a torn locker room with one side doing their job and one side not doing their job? That's a deflating loss for a defense who played that way. The Browns went into the fourth quarter with a lead. The defense gave up -7 yards in the fourth quarter, and you still lost the game. That is hard to get up for if you're a defense week in and week out.
Yeah, I read that earlier, and you saying it, and I was just kind of shaking my head when you say that. You can't say that without it being, how do you do that? All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. Just want to touch on a couple of things. If that is opening up the playbook for this year, we're in for a long season, a very long season. And with Chubb going down, that's double trouble there. And I'm an armchair quarterback. I admit that. But I can call a better game than this Stefanski can. I love you, brother. Be safe. It's a jungle out there. Love you, Dave. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, how do you think how do they need to tweak the offense moving forward without Nick Chubb?
Make an extension of the running game through the passing game with easy, quick stuff. I'm looking at David Njoku and Elijah Moore, even Akins. And it sounds crazy because we're only 2 games into this, and you have to go back to more 12 personnel. Until things start clicking for Watson and these receivers, where he's able to hit them in stride on deep shots, because there are guys that are open. He's just not seeing it. And part of it might just be a tweak in protection to keep him a little cleaner. Although last night, even when he was clean, he wasn't processing. But that has to be the end result. The end result is to get more explosive, but you might have to condense it in the short term until those things start to manifest themselves.
Yeah, the other thing, we haven't seen any RPOs or those kind of things, the combinations that were successful when he ran them in Houston. We need to see that. You need to play to this guy's strengths.
Yeah, there was a few times last night I wish he'd have kept the ball. There was a couple opportunities off the edge where guys were collapsing, and he still gave it to the running back, and it was kind of strung out for a short gain when I think he could actually use his legs to help the rest of his game out. I think that is a large part of who he was in Houston, was that dual threat ability. And at least last night, it seemed to be put on the back burner. And I know it's week 2 and you're not unloading the playbook and putting every wrinkle out there for everyone to see, but I do think they left meat on the bone by having him not use his legs as much.
Yeah, there needs to be a sense of urgency because you kind of missed a huge opportunity in Pittsburgh. Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE with Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
We'll be fine. You know, the season is over, but it feels like it's over just because we lost Chubb. But I think we'll be fine. We just have to clean up and adjust our offense fully to Watson now, unfortunately. I believe in him. I just think, yes, we paid him $230 million to do stuff like that, but at the same time, they're still learning him. He's still learning, the coaches, Kevin. They'll be fine. But this was a collective. This wasn't just on Watson. The team game, so the offense has to go clean some stuff up. So did the defense because they didn't play good as well.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, that last drive, Deshaun Watson missed an opportunity. If he goes down and is able to put a touchdown on the board and you pull out a win, you're saying, see, that's what we went out and got. Those are the type of moments that a franchise quarterback excels in. And he came up short. And I'm a huge defender of Watson. Let me say that before I say that.
Well, on the national stage, if you do that in that kind of venue, that changes the narrative. That like you said, that gives them a reason to point to, like, oh, this is why you go and pay that quarterback for these moments. And it was the opposite. Did it feel any different than it would have last year if Jacoby would have had the ball at the last drive? Because it didn't to me. I didn't have any faith when they took the field that they were about to go do something special, that they were going to march down the field and dictate it. It just felt like we were running out the clock at that point. And you shouldn't feel like that. You don't pay $230 million to feel like, well, we'll get them next week. Like, if you're in the game, you should have a chance to win it, especially when you have the ball last. And it just, once again, kind of felt like it did last year with Brissett. So it's disheartening. But luckily, there's a short week and they get to get back on the field, because that's the only way you can get a loss like this, the taste of it out of your mouth, is to go out there and go back in front of the home fans, put on a good performance, and try to put this game past you. Because if not, a game like this could haunt you the rest of your season. You just got to hope when it all stacks up and you're looking at your wins and losses that you don't point way back to week 2 and be like, that missed opportunity right there, that's what cost us our season.
Well, and even the fourth down play, you threw it to the sidelines where a guy was pretty well. Get it to somebody in space. That's what you want to do. Is you're allowing the defender to use the sideline as another defender. I don't want to hear about he was held and he was this. It wasn't a high percentage throw. That's not what you do late in the game.
It felt predetermined. It felt like that's just where he was going to go in that instance, and he didn't even look for the open man. He was just looking for a route that he felt comfortable throwing in that instance. And yeah, there was holding on Porter for DPJ, but you can't let it get to that, man. Like, to the point where if one call doesn't go your way, the whole game's gone. He's not reading the field correctly right now, and it's evident in the decisions he's making.
Kevin Stefanski addressed the passing game as well as the offensive line play against the Steelers.
Yeah, we obviously, didn't do enough there in protecting, and it's always it's multifaceted. It's play calls, it's technique, it's everything. But we just didn't do a good enough job. It's a very good front. They pressured us from the edges and from the interior, and we made some plays, but just didn't make enough.
They need to figure out why and address it.
Yeah, in a hurry too. You're not going to have long. Everyone else has that tape as well, and they're going to see what the Steelers were able to do. Let's be real. They didn't have their best interior player. Cam Hayward was not in there. The interior still got bullied. Larry Ogunjobi, who we're all too familiar with, was having his way with Wyatt Teller. Keanu Benton, who we all wanted in the draft, was out there just throwing people around. They have to get it figured out, and it does start up front. If they can get it started up front, then you can change some things if you can just control the line of scrimmage, but Tennessee's kind of like a little mini clone of Pittsburgh, the way they play. So you're going to kind of face the same issues again this week. So you've only got, 5 days left to figure that out, because Sunday at 1 o'clock is going to come pretty quick.
So CBS Sports Power Rankings, they go Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles. So 3 NFC teams, 1, 2, and 3. The Browns fall 10 spots down to 17, just behind the Steelers. And you know what? That's pretty fair given you look at how much they've turned the ball over. 6 turnovers is among the worst in the NFL. The Vikings have 7. They're the only team with more turnovers than the Browns through 2 weeks.
Turnovers are the biggest indication. That is the difference between winning and losing in this league, is being able to protect the football, and they've shown a propensity to not be able to. And that isn't all on Watson, obviously. A large part will fall on him because he's the quarterback. But, last night when Njoku fumbles, man, you got to protect it in that when they're collapsing on you. 2 hands, squeeze, whatever you got to do, get it to the ground. And it was a good play by the defense. Defenses are going to make good plays. You got to be able to hold on to the ball. That's priorities 1, 2, and 3 in this league. But 17, you're right. 17 is fair. And I think that's what you get when you have such a discrepancy between what I will go ahead and call an elite defense and an inept offense. You put those 2 things together, you're middle of the pack.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. And the good news is this defense is going to keep you in games. Offense has to figure it out pretty quickly. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one more time.
Hey, man, it's halftime in the Browns Steelers, and I just want to rant. Man, you guys keep saying Kevin Stefanski's all this and that. Dude, I don't see it. The first play of the game, why would you throw it to Harrison Bryant? You have Njoku and you have Harris, 2 experienced tight ends. Why would you throw it to Harris? It makes no sense. And then I'm watching all these other games, and I'm watching the creative play calling, and I'm watching Kevin Stefanski's play calling, and it takes too long to develop. Dude, come on. It's going to be a long season if Kevin Stefanski doesn't change his ways. It's just going to be a long season. I'm really frustrated. All right, thanks. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voice. That's a valid. Now, I thought the same thing about Harrison Bryant, and I could name 6 guys: Cooper, DPJ, Nick Chubb, David Njoku, Elijah Moore, and probably Jordan Akins that I would have targeted with a pass. And again, I don't think it was Harris. It's not let's try to get the ball to Harrison Bryant. It was that's where the reads, the progressions took Deshaun Watson. But that's rough with the first play of the game.
Yeah, you go empty 5 wide, all those weapons at your disposal, and that's where your eyes went was Harrison Bryant. You didn't load up this offseason with pass catchers to go back to your 3rd string tight end. That's just the way I feel about it. And obviously you didn't know what the end result was going to be, but if you're going to go empty with all these weapons, there's got to be a bigger emphasis to get the ball in playmakers' hands, because you have playmakers. This isn't a team bereft of talent on the outside, as we would point to in years past. There are guys who can make it happen. Funnel the ball to them. Let's do that. Let's let that be that read 1, 2, 3. Is look for Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I also want to say this. Heading into last night's game, I was bullish on the fact that they maybe shouldn't play Amari Cooper because he could re-injure himself. But had they not played Amari Cooper, they would have gotten nothing in their pass game. He was the one shining thing that we did see, and he's the guy out there playing injured, You just never know. But I do agree with the caller. There are some of these play designs that are taking too long to develop. And I'm not saying you shelf them. You put them in your back pocket for now. I think they could be there later in the season. But where this team's at right now, especially with Watson and his processing, I wouldn't be dialing those up right now. You got to get this man's feet under him and get the ball out of his hands and into these playmakers with quickness.
And that might have been the idea behind that first play was a quick hitter. But again, the question I have is why Harrison Bryant, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nick Chubb? I like all of them. David Njoku, if you would have done that. Those are guys that can win it, win early.
Yeah, if you're going 5 wide, I am questioning why he's one of your guys. That's something I'm. You're going to have to explain it to me like I'm 5 years old because it just doesn't make any sense.
So the other thing that it appeared to me, right now this offensive line run blocks a whole lot better than they pass block. They got to figure that out because you need to unlock the passing game. Jerome Ford was just fine. You don't want the season riding on Jerome Ford's ability to run the football.
No, and you're right. There is a massive discrepancy between how this offensive line run blocks and how they pass block. So, and it's scary because we give this offensive line a lot of credit in the offseason, being on paper, being a top 3 unit. But the reality is they're the highest paid unit in the league. And right now you have a quarterback who you got to get off the ground and you have to be able to pass block and keep him as clean as possible. Now I know this is a league where getting after the quarterbacks at a premium and defensive ends are crazy athletic and there's going to be things that happen, but you have to be consistent in your approach. Every down, there's a different free runner coming from somewhere on that offensive line, leaking like a sieve. And the problem is with Watson, if it's interior pressure, he doesn't handle that well. He doesn't have that ability to peel out and hit the corner. He likes to step up and then scramble through lanes, and he's just not getting them right now. So Callahan's got to tighten that up. They have to, flip on that game tape and figure out where the leaks are coming from and get it patched up as soon as possible, because if not, it's going to be a long season.
Casey Kinnaman, Dog Pound Daily, great stuff as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnaman, make sure you check him out. Dog Pound Daily, always really good stuff with the Browns. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.